I'm Abigail Thompson, 32, and I never imagined my father's birthday celebration would become the night my family finally learned the truth about my success. For years, my parents and sister Stephanie dismissed my career aspirations, believing I'd never amount to anything significant. They had no idea I owned the luxury hotel where we stood until that moment when my sister physically blocked me from entering, claiming I couldn't afford such an upscale establishment. My mother's whisper, "Don't embarrass us," still echoed as my security chief approached. If you're watching this, drop a comment letting me know where you're viewing from, hit that like button, and subscribe if you've ever been underestimated by the people who should believe in you most. Now let me take you back to where it all began, growing up in suburban Minneapolis. I was always the odd one out in my family. My parents, Richard and Diana Thompson, ran a moderately successful accounting firm, providing us with a comfortable upper middle class lifestyle. My sister Stephanie, 2 years younger than me, became the golden child, almost from birth. She was conventionally pretty socially adept and excelled at the things my parents valued, maintaining appearances following traditional paths and never rocking the boat. I, on the other hand, was more introverted and ambitious in ways my family couldn't understand, while Stephanie joined the cheerleading squad and dated the football captain. I started a small business selling customized planners to students when I was 16. My parents saw it as a cute hobby at best, a distraction from real studies. At worst, Abigail, why can't you focus on something practical? My mother would ask whenever she found me working on business plans late at night. Look at your sister. She's applying to all the right colleges, making connections. That's how you get ahead in life. The dismissal of my entrepreneurial spirit became a constant theme when I announced I wanted to study hospitality management and business instead of accounting or law. My father's disappointment was palpable. "That's not a real degree, Abby," he said during a tense dinner. "Hotels. You want to be what a glorified housekeeper. We didn't raise you to aim so low." Despite their disapproval, I held firm. I had to pay my own way through college, while my parents covered every expense for Stephanie's business degree at an Ivy League school. I worked 3 jobs: morning shifts at a hotel front desk, afternoon classes, and evening whitishing at an upscale restaurant. Those years were exhausting but educational in ways my formal studies couldn't match. During my junior year, I met Rachel Winters, a hospitality management professor who became my mentor. She recognized something in me that my family never did: raw determination and a natural talent for identifying overlooked opportunities in the luxury market. "You have an eye for potential, Abigail." Rachel told me after I presented a business case study that impressed her most. Students see properties as they are. You see what they could become with Rachel's guidance. I secured an internship at the Meridian Hotel Group during my senior year. While most interns fetched coffee and made copies, I spent every spare moment studying their business model, identifying inefficiencies, and quietly drafting improvement proposals that I never expected anyone to read 3 months. I left one of my analysis reports on the desk of James Harrison, the regional director. I'd meant to grab it before he returned from lunch, but he found it first the next day. I was called into his office, certain I was about to be fired for overstepping. Instead, James offered me a junior management position upon graduation. This analysis is better than what I get from consultants. I pay thousands. He said, tapping my report. We need people who think like you. When I called my parents with the news, their response was lukewarm at best. Well, at least you'll have study employment, my mother said, though management trainee isn't exactly executive material. Stephanie just got offered a junior analyst position at Goldman Sachs. You know, I stopped sharing my career milestones. After that, they didn't know when I was promoted to hotel manager at 26, or when I developed a guest loyalty program that increased the Meridian Group's revenue by 15%. They certainly didn't know when I left to start my own boutique hotel consulting firm at 28, or when I secured enough investors to purchase my first struggling property a year later. The Athena Hotel had been a faded five-star establishment, losing money for years before I acquired it. I renovated extensively, rebranded brilliantly, and turned it into the most exclusive boutique hotel in Minneapolis. Within 18 months, my second property followed 6 months later by my 32nd birthday. I owned a small but prestigious collection of luxury hotels across the Midwest, with the flagship Athena being my crown jewel, and personal residence I maintained the penthouse suite as my home. My parents and Stephanie remained oblivious to all of this. In their minds, I was still struggling in some middle management hotel position, barely making ends meet. I never corrected them, partly because they never asked, and partly because their assumptions revealed more about them than they did about me. As for my personal life, I kept that separate from family as well. My closest friend became Michael Chin, the brilliant security chief I hired for the Athena, a former military intelligence officer with a degree in cybersecurity. Michael quickly became my most trusted confidant and right-hand man. In all business matters, we developed a friendship built on mutual respect and a shared vision for what exceptional service truly meant. I dated occasionally, but my focus remained primarily on building my business empire. The hotels became my children, my staff, my extended family. The irony wasn't lost on me that I'd created the very thing my biological family had failed to provide, a supportive environment where achievement was recognized and celebrated. This was the backdrop against which my father's 60th birthday approached. I hadn't been home for a family gathering in nearly 2 years, making excuses about work commitments that weren't entirely untrue. But this milestone seemed important enough to warrant an appearance. And perhaps I thought an opportunity to finally bridge the gap between the person my family thought I was and the woman I'd become. What I didn't anticipate was just how wide that gap had grown, or how spectacularly it would collapse. On the night of my father's birthday celebration, 2 months before my father's 60th birthday, I received a group text from my mother planning surprise dinner for Dad's 60th, looking at Giovanni's or the Athena Hotel restaurant. Thoughts I nearly dropped my phone. My Athena was on her short list. For a moment I considered telling them the truth right then, but something held me back. Perhaps it was years of conditioning, or maybe an unexpected opportunity for a more meaningful revelation. The Athena has a great reputation. I texted back casually, their private dining room is supposed to be exceptional. It's very expensive. My mother replied, probably out of our budget and yours. Obviously that stung, but I was used to it. I could help with cost, I offered. We don't need charity. Abigail, your sister, is doing very well at her firm and has offered to cover half. We'll figure out the rest. I bid back a sarcastic response and instead suggested I could look into potential discounts through industry connections. My mother reluctantly agreed, which gave me the opening I needed that afternoon. I called my general manager at the Athena Jackson Porter. Jackson, my family is planning my father's birthday dinner at our restaurant next month. They have no idea I own the place, seriously. Jackson laughed. That's either cosmic irony or fantastic timing. A bit of both. Here's what I need. They'll call to make a reservation for the Thompson party. Give them our best private dining room, the Winston Suite, full service, premium, everything. But when they ask for the price, quote them exactly half of the actual cost. I'll cover the difference anonymously, and should we acknowledge you as the owner when you arrive? Jackson asked. I paused, considering this crucial detail. No, treat me like any other guest. Initially, I'll find the right moment to reveal the truth. Over the next few weeks, I monitored the reservation process. From afar, my mother called multiple times, haggling over details and questioning the surprisingly reasonable rate for such a prestigious venue. My executive chef developed a special menu, and I arranged for my father's favorite wines to be served throughout the evening a week before the event. My sister Stephanie called me directly, something that rarely happened. So you're actually coming to Dad's birthday? She sounded skeptical. Of course, it's an important milestone. Mum says you got some kind of discount at the Athena. How exactly did you manage that? It's not like you're a VIP guest there. The perfect opportunity to come clean presented itself, but again, I hesitated. Something about Stephanie's tone. The assumption of my insignificance made me want to wait for a more dramatic revelation. I've done some consulting work for hotel groups. I said vaguely, industry, courtesy, right? She didn't bother hiding her disbelief. Well, try to dress appropriately. The Athena is pretty upscale. Maybe I can lend you something if you don't have anything suitable. I glanced down at the custom Valentino dress I was wearing for a business meeting and smiled to myself. I'll manage, just don't embarrass us, she added. Before hanging up, those words would prove remarkably ironic. In just a few days, the night before the dinner, I received another call, this time from my mother, Abigail. We've had to add a few people to the guest list, the Robertsons. You remember Jim Robertson, your father's golf partner, and the Clarks from the neighborhood association. Oh, and Stephanie's bringing her new boyfriend. He's a junior partner at her firm. Very impressive. Young man, that sounds fine, I replied. The room can accommodate up to 20 people. How would you know that my mother's suspicion was immediate? I looked at their website when you mentioned booking there. I recovered quickly. Well, anyway, with the additional guests, we're concerned about the cost. I know you offered to contribute, but we're thinking it might be best if you handle the tip for the servers instead. That way you can participate without stretching your budget too thin. I closed my eyes and counted to 10. Sure, Mum, I'd be happy to take care of the gratuity, Wonderful, and Abigail. Please be punctual. The reservation is at 7 sharp. And you know how your father hates tardiness. After hanging up, I sat in my office overlooking the Minneapolis skyline, contemplating the following evening. Part of me felt childish for not simply telling my family the truth about my success. Another part recognized this as the perfect opportunity to address years of dismissal and disrespect. I called Michael, my security chief, and outlined a plan for the following evening. His deep laugh echoed through the phone. "You're sure about this approach?" he asked. "It's a bit theatrical. Sometimes a demonstration is more effective than an explanation," I replied. Besides, they've written their own script for this scenario. I'm just following their lead to its natural conclusion. As always, I've got your back. Michael assured me tomorrow will certainly be memorable that night. I slept in my penthouse suite above the Athena. The hotel my family believed I couldn't afford to dine in, let alone own, tomorrow would indeed change everything, though not in ways any of us could fully anticipate. The evening of my father's birthday arrived with perfect theatrical timing. A light snowfall had begun dusting the Athena's historic facade with a crystalline glow that highlighted its restored Art Deco details I'd intentionally arranged to arrive separately from my family, claiming a last-minute work commitment would make me slightly late. In reality, I wanted to observe their entrance from the hotel's security cameras dressed in a midnight blue Gancy gown, simple, elegant, but unmistakably expensive. I sat in my private office adjacent to the main kitchen, watching the monitors as my family arrived 40 minutes early. My mother wearing what I recognized as her special occasion outfit, a 10-year-old St. John suit she reserved for country club events, and weddings immediately began inspecting everything from the marble floors to the floral arrangements. My father looked uncomfortable but impressed, straightening his tie repeatedly as he gazed up at the restored ceiling murals I'd commissioned from a renowned artist. Stephanie arrived moments later with her new boyfriend, Derek, both dressed like they were attending a gala rather than a family dinner. She immediately took charge, speaking loudly to the concierge and gesturing dramatically as though she belonged there, and was doing everyone a favor by explaining how things should be handled. I watched as Jackson, my GM, personally greeted them and escorted them to the Winston Suite, where champagne and appetizers awaited. My mother's surprise was evident, even on the small security screen I'd authorized, far more than the reasonable package she'd been quoted. Miss Thompson, my executive chef, Elise, appeared at my office door. Everything is prepared according to your specifications. The wine has been decanting for 3 hours, and we've included your father's favorite bourbon for after dinner. Perfect, Elise. Thank you. I stood smoothing my dress. I think it's time for me to make my entrance as planned. I texted Michael to take his position near the hotel's grand entrance. Then I left through my private elevator, exiting the hotel entirely and walking around to approach from the main entrance. Like any other guest, the timing needed to be precise. I arrived just as the remaining guests were checking in with the front desk. Standing slightly back from the group, I observed as the Robertsons and Clarks were directed toward the private dining room just as I prepared to follow them. Stephanie emerged from a hallway, presumably returning from the restroom. Her eyes landed on me, narrowing with immediate judgment. The smile that spread across her face wasn't friendly. It was the same condescending expression I'd seen countless times. Growing up, Abigail, you actually showed up. She looked me up and down, her gaze lingering on my dress shoes and the simple but obviously real diamond earrings I wore. Wow, you borrowed something nice. Hello, Stephanie, you look lovely, I replied, refusing to engage with her implicit criticism. She frowned, perhaps disappointed. I hadn't given her more ammunition. Mum was worried you'd back out or show up looking like you just left work at wherever it is you're working these days. I'm exactly where I want to be. Career-wise, I said honestly, right. She glanced over my shoulder toward the entrance. Then her eyes widened. Oh, you didn't please tell me you didn't bring a date to Dad's birthday. This is a family event, Abigail. I turned to see Michael entering impeccable in his tailored suit before I could explain he wasn't joining us. My mother appeared beside Stephanie Abigail. Finally, we've been here for ages. She barely looked at me, her attention immediately shifting to Michael. And who is this? We didn't arrange for extra seating, this is, I began, But Michael smoothly interjected, "Good evening, Mrs. Thompson. I'm Michael Chin, head of security for the Athena Hotel. I just needed a brief word with Miss Thompson." My mother's expression shifted instantly from irritation to embarrassment. "Security, Abigail? What have you done now?" Before I could respond, Stephanie stepped directly in front of me, physically blocking my path toward the restaurant, as though preventing me from fleeing. "Is there a problem with her reservation?" Stephanie asked Michael, speaking about me as if I weren't present. "We can cover her portion if that's the issue." My mother moved closer, her voice dropping to that particular whisper that somehow carried perfectly. "Despite its lowered volume, Abigail, don't embarrass the family. If you're having financial problems again, you should have said something before coming to a place like this." The lobby had grown quiet, with several guests and staff pausing to observe the unfolding drama. Jackson had appeared near the restaurant entrance, watching with barely concealed amusement. He caught my eye, raising an eyebrow in question. I gave him an almost imperceptible nod, actually. Michael said, his professional tone unwavering. "I wanted to inform Miss Thompson that her special requests for the evening have been arranged, according to her specifications." Special requests? My mother looked confused. "What special requests?" Stephanie rolled her eyes. "Mum, she probably asked for the cheapest wine option or something. Can we please go back to the party?" "Derek is telling Dad about his new BMW." She turned, attempting to guide my mother away while still blocking my path. That's when Michael cleared his throat loudly. "Mrs. Thompson, Miss Stephanie, perhaps you're unaware that you're currently preventing the owner of this establishment from entering her own